Hey guys, today I'm bringing together 4 different ways to build a homemade welding machine, all in one video. Not just for fun, but so anyone who actually wants to make one can understand the steps and the logic behind it. Each method has its pros and cons, and I'll be honest about both. If you ever thought that building your own welder is complicated or expensive, well, by the end of this video, you might see it's a lot simpler than you think. This first trick is actually pretty simple. We'll start by removing the battery core. Sounds easy, but it's an important step that sets up everything else we'll do next. Take your time, don't rush it. A small mistake here could damage the cell or short it out. Now, let's clean up the battery core a bit. It helps the surface make better contact and keeps any dust or residue from messing with our connections later. You don't need anything fancy, just a dry cloth or a bit of alcohol will do the job. Keep it simple and clean. Here I've got an old handheld soldering iron that's missing a few wires in the tip. Instead of throwing it away, we're going to repurpose it. Of course, after this process, it won't perform the same as it once did, but at least we're not wasting it or adding to environmental harm. What we'll do is turn it into a leaner version. Less powerful, yes, but more energy efficient and still practical enough for smaller, everyday tasks. I'm turning this battery core into a soldering tip by grinding the end smooth and trimming it shorter. Simple steps, but they'll decide how well it works. Let's see how it goes. That's it. Let's set it aside for now and move on to the next step. I've got a single wire ready here. The first step is to connect one end of the wire to the soldering tip we just made. As for the other end, we'll take care of it a little later. As for the other end of the wire, I'll attach it to an alligator clip for easier connection and use. Here it is. This is the alligator clip we'll be using for the wiring step. To make it safer, we should wrap a few layers of electrical tape around the handle, giving it a more secure and reliable grip. I've also prepared a second tool, a single wire with alligator clips attached to both ends. Here we've got a small battery, which will serve as a power source for this device. Now, let's hook it up to the battery. Pay close attention and be careful not to mix up the connections. One small mistake here could cause problems. See that? It worked! As soon as the two terminals touched, a spark appeared, showing that the circuit is live. Since the battery core is still damp, I'll dry out first before moving on to the testing phase. All right, let's get started. I won't say anything more. Just feel it with your heart. All right, that's the first method done, and it worked out pretty well. Now, let's move on to the second one. Have you ever thought that an old, working spark plug could turn into something completely different? Today, I'll show you how to build a unique welding machine, starting from something you'd normally throw away. Just a bit of creativity and basic knowledge of electricity. Now I'm going to quickly clean up the spark plug. If you just want to get to the main part, feel free to skip ahead a bit. Spraying a bit of multi-purpose oil before wiping it with a cloth makes it much more effective. After cleaning, the threaded part of the spark plug is much cleaner. Now we'll secure in the drill chuck to grind down the tip of the threads, making it easier for the next connection step. Grind it for a bit, then stop to check if it's good. Don't get carried away and overdo it. In my hand, here's a live prong from an electrical plug. I'm going to strip it down and use one prong as a welding tip. You might be hearing this for the first time, but don't jump to conclusions. In a moment, you'll see exactly how I turn this small part into a usable tip. If you see me using a new plug and think it's wasteful, think broader. Using an old electrical plug wouldn't be a problem at all. In this step, I'll remove all the screws so it's easy to mount in the grinder, then sharpen the prong. This way, welding will be much easier. You don't need to sharpen it to a point just like this is enough. Alright, now we're going to attach this welding tip made from the plug prong onto the threaded end of the spark plug. Here, I've got almost everything ready. All that's left is the power source. The red wire represents the positive side and will connect to the positive terminal. I'll attach one end to the welding tip and the other end to a crocodile clip. The white wire, with both ends on the other clip, will connect to the negative terminal of the power source. Always remember, use electrical tape on the connections to prevent exposed wires and keep the wires from coming loose. I'd say this spark is pretty solid, much stronger than using a battery core as a welding tip in my previous video. I'm confident that with the 2 small tests coming up, everything works. Enjoy the results and watch all the way through to decide if you want to try it yourself. You can see that the second method actually works pretty well. It might not be as strong as the first one, but honestly, it's still worth trying. The good thing is, it's simple and doesn't require much hardware. Alright, let's move on to the third method. This one's a bit more interesting. First, with a simple electrical wire, I'll connect one end to the threaded part of the spark plug. This part directly contacts the metal and helps conduct electricity for the makeshift welding. For the third method, I'm still using a spark plug as a key component of the welder, but the setup this time is completely different. Don't skip ahead just because you've seen a spark plug before. Trust me, this one's used in a whole new way, and that's exactly what makes it stand out. After connecting, I'll screw a nut onto the threads to secure the connection, making sure the wire stays firm during use. Next, I wrap some tape around to secure the wire to the spark plug body, keeping the connection tight and preventing the wire from moving during use. I've also got a wooden handle about the length of my hand. will turn it into the welding device's grip. For safety, when drilling a small hole through the wooden handle, I secure it firmly in a vise, preventing slipping or misalignment. Using one end, I drill the hole slightly larger to make it easier to fit and secure the spark plug's threads into the wooden handle without it being too tight or loose. If you're not confident on the first try, stop drilling. Test whether the spark plug's threads fit, and then continue drilling little by little until a hole in the handle can securely hold the spark plug. I'll add a bit of glue to firmly secure the spark plug, preventing it from slipping out during use. Let me take a moment to think about the next step. Everyone, I've got it. The next step is to connect the other end of the wire to an alligator clip. Bear with me. Everyone, my memory's a bit fuzzy today. So this is an alligator clip. If you're new, remember its shape. It'll be really helpful when you go shopping, as you can accurately describe its appearance and purpose to the store staff. It's a bit rushed, but I will talk more about this tool soon. We'll use the battery from a power drill as a power source for our welding device. With these two metal washers, I'll attach them to the positive and negative terminals of the battery so they can conduct electricity to the two homemade tools from earlier. Now that I think about it, the tool is actually quite simple, just a wire with alligator clips on both ends. This tool will connect to the negative terminal, and the other tool will connect to the positive terminal. Don't get them mixed up, everyone. All right, we did it. The third setup works. Now let's see how this thing performs. Hey, my bad, guys. I was a bit clumsy trying to keep the cup steady during the test, so it looked a little messy. If that bothered you, I'm sorry about that. But hey, what really matters is how well the setup works in the end, right? I'd say this one's a bit stronger than the last two. The arc feels more stable, and the output's a little smoother. Not a huge difference, but you can definitely tell it's performing better. All right, that's done. Now let's move on to the final step. Don't be surprised. Our final homemade welder starts with a spoon. Sounds odd, but that's what makes it cool. Keep watching, and you'll see why something this simple matters. The first step's pretty simple. Just mark 2 spots on the handle, exactly like I'm doing here. In a moment, we'll drill and cut right at those points. Now clamp the spoon firmly in the vise. Make sure it doesn't move when we start drilling. Looks like I drilled a little off-center. Luckily, it didn't slip past the edge. Part of it's because the surface is pretty slick. And partly, I just didn't plan it carefully enough. After brushing off the drilling dust, this time we'll cut along the mark line. Once the cutting is done, we'll file the cut surface to make it smooth and neat. Next, I'm going to punch a hole right in the center of the spoon surface. I just forgot to mention, this hole needs to be drilled, so it fits snugly around the motorcycle valve stem. This new drilled spot, we should lightly sand it to make it smooth. Once it's sanded, we'll fit the motorcycle valve stem into the hole we just drilled in the spoon. Here, I've got a PVC pipe and a piece of single core wire ready. First, we'll connect one end of the wire to the hole on the spoon's handle. Before dealing with the other end of the wire, we'll slip this heat shrink tube over the connection for insulation. as per the process. We'll first thread the wire through this tube, turning it into a handle. But that won't work, because the wire would be too loose and the handle wouldn't be stable. So we'll wrap the spoon's handle with tissue paper to make it snug, and then insert it into the tube. To make it more secure, we'll add a little glue to the tissue wrap. To make it more secure, we'll sprinkle a bit of baking soda onto the tissue wrap and then add some glue. The baking soda helps the glue set faster, improving adhesion and stability for the handle. Alright, now we'll connect the other end of the wire to a crocodile clip. This allows us to safely and conveniently link our makeshift welding tool to the power source. To make a welding tip using a battery core like this, you can rewind the beginning of the video. I showed the full process there. This battery is a bit smaller, but the method is pretty much the same. Of course, we can't do without this. I'm going to use specialized drill or grinder batteries to power our makeshift welding tool. These batteries provide a stable current. To make use of the battery, we'll need these two metal washers. Attach them to the negative and positive terminals. They act as an intermediary to securely connect the battery to the welding device. With this wire, we'll connect to the negative terminal. The other wire goes to the positive terminal. This ensures the current flows correctly, allowing the welding device to work efficiently and safely. It looks like the battery core is still a bit wet. When the terminals touch, the core might spark and some liquid may leak out. Don't worry, just wait for it to dry out, and it can be used as usual. While we're at it, let me show you how to fix a lab light. Kind of little bonus to wrap up today's video. It's a simple fix, but once you know how, it'll save you a lot of time and money. So, we've gone through 4 different ways to build your own welder. Each one's got its strengths. The key is finding what works best for you. If this video helped or inspired you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share with anyone who loves building stuff from scratch. The more support this channel gets, the crazier and more creative the next projects can be. Thanks for watching till the end. I'll see you in the next one. And trust me, it's going to be even better than this.